Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our Live at 5, where we discuss freedom and liberty in the state of California. My name is Denise, and I'm one of the founders of FreedomAngels.
Hi, everybody. My name is Heidi. I am one of the co-founders of FreedomAngels. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. And today we have two guests that we're so excited to introduce. We will start with Miss Lisa. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, everybody. I'm a California public school elementary bilingual teacher in the Bay Area.
And David, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is David Rodriguez. I am a principal of a private school, focused on accelerated graduations, a homeschool consultant, a homeschool leader, and a publisher of The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. And I can't wait to have this conversation. It's going to be awesome.
I'm so excited. You know, for so many years, there has been a complete attack on our children in public and private schools and charter schools, and parents have come to with their back against the wall and they don't know where to turn. So today we're going to be talking about homeschooling and how to pull your child from the system that obviously is attacking the, parental rights and all of the things that, they should be teaching in school. They are not teaching in school. So today we're going to give David and Lisa the platform, and I'm really excited. We're also going to have a question and answer at the end of this live, and throughout the live, please throw out your questions and they will be happy to answer them. So let's get into it. Who's going first?
I want to start with Lisa because she is at ground zero right now, understanding all the changes that are about to come out because of COVID-19 and the civil unrest. So Lisa, go ahead, take it away. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, well, basically, this isn't my opinion. COVID was an adrenaline rush for the education cabal in California. They realized the connection between our economy and our schools. And when they closed us down on the 14th of March and said 2 weeks, that ended up into 13 weeks. And then parents went home and were then, dumped on to be the teacher as well. They saw that they could influence the economy of California. And as we've all gone through this whole thing with essential and non-essential, basically my response is that the state of California told parents and students they were non-essential. And so now we have this impact because, in my opinion, everything is really hinged on the 2020 November election. And those in California with power are trying to impact the economic recovery of the U.S. through minimizing the recovery in California by holding parents hostage, by having draconian measures in the schools, such as kids wearing masks all day long, the varied schedule, no recess, no cafeteria, and on and on and on and on it goes.
And so what are some of the new restrictions? You were just saying you were in your classroom today because you were trying to set up or tear down, I can't remember which, close up your classroom for the end of the year and then get it ready for the fall.
Yeah, what's going to happen is kids have to be 6 feet away from each other at all times. Well, we all know kids are like puppies. They want to be next to each other, and that's a good thing. Kids are going to be asked to wear masks. People are talking about taking their temperature multiple times during the day. I already mentioned no cafeteria, so we can't be in big groups. No recess with other kids. No parent volunteers, and just this not Monday through Friday consistent schedule, which will really impact the learning. And then they'll also want the kids to continue, say they get to come to school Monday, Tuesday, then the rest of the week they remote learn. So it's going to be a rough situation. One of the advantages we had in March was that we had already done 7 months of school. And so kids were in a different place We were ending the year, where this way we're beginning the year. Very different.
My son is going to have to do the distance learning, and I homeschool one and my other one goes to public school. This is going to really impact us, not only because it's a distance learning, but I don't allow my children to be on electronics all day long. We don't have a computer for the kids to use. They have minimal use with a small tablet to do little things. But what about the parents who are trying to, do the right thing, keep their kids out of these electronics and, off of screen time? You might as well homeschool. I mean, if this is the environment that they're putting you in, you're already homeschooling, except it's isolation learning, and you don't have the available tools to really make an impact in your child's education. So, homeschool. And this is why we're doing this live. We hear the restrictions on public school, and it's really, it's traumatizing, to be honest.
And Denise, can I just put my hand up here? Can you imagine relating to people that you only partially see? That's not human.
Right.
That's abnormal. It's not a new normal. It's abnormal.
I agree 100%.
And then Lisa, let's dive into it a little bit with, because of the civil unrest, didn't you say there's new curriculum that's already being ready to be rolled out because of the state of our situation right now?
Right. Well, across the board, you're seeing districts get very cozy with BLM curriculum, and that has a very potent emotional element to it that is very challenging to explain to children. They're going to have a zillion questions. It depends on what kind of photographs they see, what kind of stories they hear. I, for one, as a parent, don't think that's my place as a teacher, to delve into those very emotionally charged places, because kids are going to have lots of worries and ideas, and I'm not going to know about it. I'm their teacher, not their mom. And so I wouldn't be surprised if kids have strong emotional reactions, fear and anxiety. I think one of the worst things about all of these changes is, for so long, our job as teachers was to build connection, community, the sense that we're all together in this. And now each child is almost a walking silent enemy that might harm you if you touch them or hug them, or you can't sit next to them and enjoy a puzzle or a book or a project. That's just so completely abnormal.
I'm interested to see if my child's school is going to have this curriculum. I do not think it is a teacher's job or position to tell my child this information. And as a Mexican American, right, I have a little bit of a problem with my child going to school and being told that they are less than, that other people think they are less than by the color of their skin. This is the victim mentality that we have been taught since the very beginning. I grew up in the ghettos, in the hoods, and I was always thought to believe I had that victim mentality and I was less than because of the way I looked. Now we're grooming these children at age 5 and up to think that way and to see their neighbor, because racism is not a natural human reaction. It's a taught behavior. So when you're sitting next to your fellow's peer and that person's white and you're Mexican or you're black, you're going to look at that person and act, you hate me, don't you? This is that victim mentality, and that's going to grow that hate. It's not going to grow a person who wants to strive and do better. It's going to grow a person who wants things because of the color of their skin. Right. That's just my 2 cents.
One of the things that I think it's putting in reverse the progress we've made. I think it's highlighting race when what we need to do is highlight how we cooperate, how we work together, how we have fun together, how instead of this more negative agenda. I think it's a very negative agenda that older students can better handle, but certainly I think even junior high kids, very challenging emotionally.
Yeah, I agree. Now, a lot of parents feel like their backs are against the wall. They have no idea where to start. They have no idea what is going to be asked of them. So David, if a person who has never homeschooled before, never even thought about it, because I had never thought about it until I had to think about it. What is the direction? Where are these parents supposed to go now?
So first of all, we have to redefine what education is. And it's like getting a gym membership for your friend or your child because you want them to be healthy. You can't give them health. You can give them a gym membership. In the same way, you can't give your child an education. That's something they have to do to themselves. And that's how I define education. It's what you do to yourself to create a good life. And schooling is what another person or organization does to you for their benefit. So we got to understand what is an education and what are we after. And homeschooling, how I define it, is when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. And the book that I published by John Taylor Gatto, this great teacher who taught for 30 years, kind of like you, Lisa, you know, in the classroom, in the trenches, loving on these kids and trying to empower them, but then you have the bureaucracy above you. He said that education should be as unique as your fingerprints. So however unique you think you're not, you are, and your child is. And so rather than trying to take this curriculum and force it on them, it's like, what are we after? What do we desire? And I recommend my clients, they actually define what is success in the situation. What do you desire for your child? And typically the answers are a happy child, a healthy child, and a child who grows up being productive and living a life that they love. And so these are big questions and big ideas, but it's way better than what's going on in the state now. So first of all, homeschooling is kind of the way it was for thousands of years. What we're experiencing now in the United States has been around for about 100 years, maybe 120 years, depending on your state. It's abnormal as we're using this social distancing. It's abnormal. And for me, I call it a day prison. I call it child abuse because the state is actually manipulating the minds of your child for the benefit of the state. And so it's so important that parents, as you look at homeschooling and look at education, you don't need a credential. You don't need any qualifications. The qualification you do have, mom and dad, is you love your child more than anybody on planet Earth, and you're going to be around next year and 5 and 10 and 30 years. I'm in my 30s and I still love my mom and dad so much, and all the love they put into me. So if mom and dad, you can understand that love is the lesson, the world is the classroom, you can start there. And even if back in the days, maybe when Lisa was teaching or John Gatto, it was about reading, writing, and arithmetic, but now it's about social distancing and racism education and all these different things. And hey, if your child wants to study that and you want to study that in your house, by all means, go study that. But a real education for me is creating a good life. You know, what is a good life? You know, your values, your faith, your non-faith, your love, what matters to you. You know, life is so short. And if we can help our child understand you're a unique creature on earth from God or nature, whatever you believe, and you're here for something special. And so that connection is really important, and understanding you don't have to get these degrees and feel disqualified. But if mom and dad, if you leave your child in the school system, they're going to get this curriculum from the state. And the technique that they're doing right now is called divide and conquer. And so these rulers, and I call them the cabal or the criminals, who actually plot, they get together in the boardroom and they're like, how can we create obedient serfs and citizens and slaves? And they put it together, and that's why they forcibly require your child to attend at age 6 all the way up to age 18. And if your child's gone for a certain number of days, it's called a truant. And then a truancy officer comes to your house, knocks on the door and says, hey, where's Susie? They've been missing for a week or two. So it's a redefining of education and the role of the state. And for me, I am someone who believes in voluntary relationships, consensual relationships, no exceptions. And this concept is called voluntarism. I think this is the future. I think if more adults out there would understand that you have natural rights from the creator or from nature, then you would start exercising and step into that. However, they don't teach that in school for a reason. So when you do homeschool, teach them about natural rights, teach them they own their flesh and blood and they're responsible for their life and nobody owes you anything. And, you know, like you mentioned, Denise, like if you start saying, hey, because you're this gender or this race, we have to help you. We have to basically devalue your human worth. Kids feel that, you know, and they want to step into the power. And that's why when they're 4 years old or 6 years old, they're like, hey, I want to help clean up the house, Mom. And they're like, they grab the broom and they sweep the dirt everywhere. And they're trying to help, but they're trying to express themselves. They're trying to express their power. And it takes some time and patience and years, but eventually they'll step into their power at age 10, 11, 12, 13 and say, wow, like I'm a human being. So that's what I'd say is redefine education, redefine homeschooling. And don't let any politician, especially some governor, some instructor, and I should tell you first, I have family members that are retired public school teachers and current teachers and principals. So I know there's loving people in the system. However, it is a system. It's a factory model designed to create obedient people. So when they grow up, they will do whatever they're told. And this taps into Agenda 21 and the plan for a totalitarian state, global citizen. And so that's why they're getting away from your inalienable rights and going towards UN declared rights. So that's hopefully we'll talk about that here. So redefining is the starting point. I recommend my clients start there and also the people listening.
You know, go ahead.
Because we did the distance learning starting in March, I got to see parents step into that. Their kids discover, oh, I'm interested in the planets. Oh, I'm interested in dinosaurs. Oh, I want to learn how to ride my bike without training wheels. And these kids ended up finding their own path and, you know, supporting their interests, supporting their reading, and they were so proud of themselves. It was so exciting. They were like carnivorous about learning. My kids are still learning this summer. They're using the tools that we provided them, and my kids are, I teach kindergarten. My kids are already working on their first grade skills, and they're not going to stop because they had so much fun.
Yeah, I have my own study at home with a multitude of different things, and the first one would be my son who goes to public school. When this whole crisis hit, his teachers were really talking to him about it, things that I didn't agree with the way they were talking about. Because remember, every household is different. We're not all on one page. And my son ended up developing anxiety, really bad anxiety, to where he would sob all day long. He was scared I was going to die. He was scared if I was going to be gone too long. And my son, who I homeschool, he's like, we'll just eat better. You know, we'll support our immune system. And he's aware of these things. So when I was thrown into homeschooling, I was really nervous because I thought they had to do you have to read first. You have to do the alphabets first. You have to do the math first. Remember, I reached out to David and David said the same thing. Do what he is wanting to do. So my son started off with math, with numbers and money. And now he can balance checkbooks. I mean, you know, he's 6 and he knows about money and bank systems, and my 9-year-old is struggling with it. So we need to start, I don't know what happened. We need to start questioning the system that made us believe we can't educate our 5-year-olds.
Yes. I wanted to add in, I'm seeing some comments. So one comment that came across was, homeschooling becomes a hardship for working parents, and what about the parents that are too dysfunctional to teach their kids? I just wanted to make a little comment first, and then we can send it over to Lisa and David. But as far as the dysfunction, I'm going to tell you, we all are dysfunctional. If we're honest with ourselves, every one of us has dysfunction. Homeschooling is a giant mirror. And when you have to face everything that you've been sweeping under the rug, yes, there is going to be some growing pains. But again, I'm not quite sure if it's hard to deprogram, because I am a product of public education, and I've been homeschooling my children for 3 years now. I still get caught up in the checklist, like, have I done this? Have I caught up? Am I meeting this standard or whatnot? Am I good enough at teaching my kids? Well, David's going to jump in and say this too. It's not about you as a parent teaching your kids. It's not my ability in knowing every single subject that is out there under the sun. My job as a homeschooling parent is to provide an environment where the children are excited to learn themselves and giving the freedom for them to explore for themselves. So Lisa, do you want to address that? And then David, back to working parents and the dysfunction, being too dysfunctional to teach their children.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, because we have this image that everybody in the public schools is like a stellar person. Not true. Just not true. There are many people I've worked with that I would never want my children, my nieces and nephews, to be in their classroom. So we overemphasize the value that they have a teaching job, and we undervalue ourselves. And like David was talking about, you know your kid. I had this one little boy this year, and he was just not working, watching everybody. I was super concerned about him. Well, when COVID hit, his mama sat right by him. She kept tapping the table, tapping him, saying, you know that, go do it right now. And he just turned it on because he had a mama that knew his personality and could push him at the right time in the right way. And when you know your kid, you know what their interests are, you know their moods, you know they're a morning person, they need to go run it out, get sweaty, whatever it is. And you have the flexibility to do that versus forcing them to sit in the chair, forcing them to do something at a time that's good for 24 other people.
Right. Yes, those are some great points. The first one about dysfunctional families. I mean, we all are dealing with struggling and all these challenges. Hey, life is a challenge, you know, and it's a gift, it's a dance, it's beautiful, and it's hard sometimes. So there is no, I think, magic bullet for dysfunction other than stop forcing people to do stuff, start respecting their human dignity. And this goes to a state problem in general, but the school system is actually designed to pull children away from the family and give them the statist religion or the statist doctrine, which is be loyal to the state. I pledge allegiance to the flag for the republic. But wouldn't it be better to pledge allegiance to love, to trust, to respect the human dignity, to your family, to your values, to your spiritual beliefs? So it's designed that way. So it's difficult. However, when you talk about its hardship, sometimes you got to make tough choices. You know, if you have two incomes and you need that, maybe someone's got to give up an income and maybe you got to downsize your house, but this is only temporary. You know, the real like difficult years, I think, for homeschooling is maybe around age 8 to maybe 15, 16, where they need that support from mom or dad, whoever's loving on them, grandma. And then by the time they're 16, 17, they're like an adult, you know, they're ready to go, you know, and then the first few years, it's just playtime, experience, exploration, adventure. They'll learn to read when they need to read. Right? You'll learn to do math when you're going to the grocery store and you have $2 and you're like, okay, how do I figure this out now? Right? Like that's real world learning versus being taught this textbook and saying, this is the scenario. You have 55 apples and 6 bananas and how does divide? It's like, that's not real. You'll never need that. You know, you'll never need quadratic equations. You'll never need algebra, basically, maybe if you become an engineer or something. So parents got to make a tough choice. And that is, how valuable is the mind and the heart of your child? And sometimes you got to move to Kansas or, you know, Oklahoma or something. I mean, it's a difficult choice. There is no magical solution. However, what the state's doing, they're forcing your child to be in their building and then threaten you in California with a year in jail or $2,000 fine under the education code. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're threatening you, right? So this is, you know, it's a criminal entity. Us 5 and hundreds of people watching this thousands later, we don't use coercion in our life because we know that's wrong. But then when Tony Thurmond or Gavin Newsom or whoever puts on a suit and they say, I'm now the public instructor and the governor and it's like, no, you're a human. and I can't give a right to you that I don't have. So where did you get the right to force my kids in these schools? They made it up. And that's how you know it's criminal and immoral, is they are doing something that we can't do to them. And so that's why it's so important that parents step into it, lean into it, understand there's a bunch of people who've been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years. There's books out there, there's videos, documentaries. As a side note, there is a film called Summerhill 2008. I recommend all parents watch that to understand how voluntary learning actually works. And one of the best solutions is going to the library, which unfortunately there's no libraries right now in some of the counties and cities. But a library is like a wonderland of information. So you can bring your kids in there, and not like in the school where it's like, okay, we got 30 minutes, ready, set, go. But like, make it a day. Go there in the morning and say, hey, we're going to spend the hours, 4 or 5 hours. And then you can go learn anything in this giant building or small library, and allow that freedom. They can study what they want to study. And then once they find that passion, once they find that curiosity, they will just go full steam ahead. And there's a funny story about Albert Einstein. He was actually not speaking until he was like 4 years old. And so the doctor told his mother, hey, he's learning disabled, he's not going to have a good life. And so what happened, somebody gave him a magnet, one of those magnets, you put little metal things on it, and they like build little artifices with metal shavings. And so he was with this magnet, and he was looking at the magnet, and he got really curious. What makes these pieces of metal stick to this rock? Like, that's so interesting. So that curiosity inspired him, and then he started becoming very interested, and then he became, one of the top scientists of all time. Unfortunately, he contributed to the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb, but he did regret it later. But the point is that find something that's interesting, find something that's curious, creating for them, and then that will put them on the right path. So yeah, it's hard having dysfunctional family or parents or all these things. And how about the media? How about the Hollywood? How come there's not empowering information on your television screen, on the cartoons? And there's some nefarious things out there. And these corporations want to get on your child, parasite, suck their energy, suck their life force. And that's why they teach loyalty to the state instead of loyalty to the family.
Yeah,
And
I'm one of those parents to 2-income families. And when we got thrown into this, I mean, we're in Stockton, we're, very working class. We had to give up an income, and it's hard. We're so used to having that quick fix, the Band-Aid, just send them to school and you forget about it. And after homeschooling my son, and it's still right now, it's learning, it's learning and play. So, but once I figured out how I was going to do this program, you figure out creative steps, just how any parent does. You figure out how to make it work. You meet other parents who can help you on certain days if needed. But this is going to take us getting out of our comfort zone, because I realized I wasn't very much involved in my children's education when they were, high school, and my 9-year-old, I feel bad. I had no idea what they were learning. They came home. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my phone. They came home, they did their homework, and that's all I knew. And I sent them back to school. So this has been a really great bonding experience with my 6-year-old. I know everything about him, and I did not about my older 2. So it's going to be an adjustment, but it's very much worth it.
Yes, can I just say real fast, and then Lisa, jump to you. The person who actually gave me the most motivation to homeschool, she is a single mom. So it is possible to do this as a single parent. Obviously, you have to get very creative, just like those of us. I am married. I did have to give up my income to homeschool. We had to get really creative to make that happen. So it's possible too for the single parent to do it. We will probably have another Zoom call that will be just special for single parents, and we'll probably have a panel on including single parents that are doing it to let you know it is 100% possible. Lisa, what were you going to add?
yeah, I did it as a single parent. I homeschooled for 3 years, and I'm really grateful I had that opportunity. When my son sadly got pushed back into the public schools, he was like light years ahead of the other kids. The other thing I was going to say is that some of my friends who are single co-op with each other. And so a number of families will decide their kids are compatible, and they'll create a schedule, and they'll actually homeschool each other's children with a schedule. And so that's worked. And not everything has to happen from 8 to 3. I mean, you have so much flexibility. In my class, I had kids who basically just did homeschooling, distance learning on the weekends or in the evening once mom came home. So it doesn't have to be like some of my parents wanted to do a school schedule. And I said, why? Why would you do that? I'm in my pajamas. Aren't you in yours? Come on now. Right? So enjoy the benefits of not having to be in the brick and mortar school, and the freedom, like David was saying, the freedom to learn the things that excite you, that you're curious about.
Yeah. I see Tara joined us. Hey, Tara.
Hi.
But I want to say something about grades and evaluations too, because I was listening to this 3 days ago from Thurman and this doctor, representing California, and they're talking about assessments. And it's like, I was going through public school, trying to get good grades, and SAT and go to college, all these things. As I mentioned before, you want to redefine what education is. And then if you look up Howard Gardner, he talks about 8 types of intelligences. And I think, and these intelligences include musical, physical, spatial, interpersonal, intrapersonal, lyrical, amazing types of intelligence. And the school only talks about math and language effectively, right? So like the physical, the artist, these guys suffer inside of schools, and we need art more than ever. And this is one of the kind of side conversations. We got to produce freedom art, love art. We got to inspire humanity, show them where they can go towards a voluntary world. But what I recommend parents do, whether you're homeschooling or not, is when your child is talking about grades, try to have a different conversation about satisfaction, joy in learning, because our goal, or one of the goals, is to become a lifelong learner, lover of learning, because that ensures their success. But if they're trying to do something to get some, silver star or gold star, and yay, I got this approval. It's like, no, we have to have approval from ourselves. We got to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, young person, I like you. I think you're doing good, and that's why when our kids look in our eyes, we just got to pour that love inside of them. And then eventually they're like, oh, I'm worthy of love. And you're like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you can do math or reading and all of these things. And one of my friends, she had a 8-year-old daughter in a private school, and they were getting a lot of testing. And so they put her in another school. And so I said, how's the new school going? She's 8 years old. She says, it's going okay. I said, are they doing a lot of testing? She's like, yeah, but my mom doesn't care if I get bad grades, so it's okay. So he just says it just like that. It's like because before she was stressed, she was crying going to school. But then once mom relaxed and said, it's okay if you have low grades or high grades, these don't matter. No one's ever going to ask you for your high school diploma. I got a business degree. No one's ever asked to see my business degree. It's about your humanity. Are you a nice? Do you have a character, integrity, discipline, these kind of things? Like, these are big things to shoot for, and they take time. But GPA, in Asia, some of these kids are committing suicide because they get low GPA and they're not going to get into college or whatever it is. And they tell them, this is the one test that you have to get in, or else your whole life is a failure. And they believe it, and then they commit suicide. So just as a kind of final part is, forget about the GPAs if you would, and focus on the joy of learning and the curiousness and like things that are natural as an adult. And then the other part is that if mom or dad, if you guys are doing some learning, like doing your own project, so whether you're 20, 30, 50, 60, what are you studying? Because your child's going to look at you and say, well, mom's not doing, they watch TV all day. But if mom's reading or writing or producing, sewing, gardening, something that they love, that they actually enjoy, then your child's like, wow, I guess life is about finding something that you love to do. What do I want to do? And then they can think about that for a few years before they find out, like, wow, you got to provide a shelter, food, clothing for myself. Man, life is difficult, but at least my parents love me. And that's the kind of a bond that you want. So when they leave the nest, they know that bond is still there, and they can depend on you in difficult situations as life is full of them.
Yeah, the school system has very much changed. I remember when my daughter was in school, back to school night or parent teacher conference would be showing me the art that she made and all the fun projects that she made with her friends and doing all those fun things. And now when I go to my son's parent-teacher conference, I'm so disconnected from that teacher, and she feels it. And I feel bad because she's only doing her job, but she's sitting there, and the first thing that she tells us is, oh, he's failing by 2 points at reading this thing. And it's like, why are we telling our children in front of them that they're failing and they're not reaching their full potential when they're coming home and they're telling me that he tried all day long? So this has really discouraged him. And so we try to kind of redirect that behavior of the teacher. But that's where I'm at. When I do these parent-teacher conferences, I'm like, I have no questions. I don't care. I know that he's doing the best he can, and he'll get to whatever goal he needs to reach as long as he puts that goal for himself, not by this standardized, testing that they do across the board. It's not a one size fits all.
No, it's
Right.
not. And I have a 9-year-old who's not reading proficiently yet. By California standards, I'm a failure as a parent. He's a failure as a child. Like big F everywhere. But I have to say, it's when I sit back, I have conversations with David. I talk to my other friends, and they're like, your son is gifted and brilliant in 101 other ways. The reading will come when the time is right. And I have to tell you, we are traveling right now, and he has been reading every single sign as we travel. And it's been really exciting because he's like, oh, mommy, I know what that sign says. So because I laid off and didn't freak out that I have a 9-year-old not reading, he's learning to do it on his own in his own way. And it's exciting to watch happen.
Can I just say, if I was stranded anywhere in any country and with no supplies, I would want to be stranded with Heidi's son, because he's a survivalist and he is brilliant. He has this just something that, that he's going to be fine. Doesn't matter if he can't read right now, but he can build you a house if you guys are stranded somewhere and it's going to rain. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this is, all of our children are built so differently, and they have different goals in their own minds. It's ridiculous to put them, especially now in this, I know a teacher who has, her classroom has squares inside, and those are where the children are going to stay. They can't move from there. They have squares outside, and they can't play with anybody. So this person goes back to work after being, laid off for a while. And she's like, my children are traumatized because they're coming to school and they're in the square and they see me, they want to hug me, but I can't get near them. What are we doing to our children? This is going to be something we will never be able to recover them from.
No, there's nothing that's okay with that. And just for anyone listening, you don't have to follow those those are guidelines. Those aren't laws. So you're going to have to fight your county public health officer and get in there with your school district and tell them these are guidelines, not laws. And don't let your elected officials turn those into laws, because it'll be a lot harder to turn around. Sorry for jumping in late. You guys all know how much I love Waldorf. I just want to say that whether you're homeschooling Waldorf or whatever, one of the things that's so beautiful about it, well, there's so many, it builds resiliency into a child's day. It teaches, so read about it. It teaches you about rhythm, how to have internal and external activities flow together, because that provides resiliency for whoever your child is and for whatever kind of day they're having. And then some other things, like if you read deep on some of the things that Rudolf Steiner talks about and teaches through Waldorf that I love, is to develop a capacity for reverence within our children. It's one of the greatest gifts that we can give them, I think, is to teach them that ability, because it's something for their whole life that will carry them through. It's far more valuable than learning algebra, that's for sure. So I missed so much of the convo, so I don't want to say too much now, but thank you for being here, Lisa and David.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
This is
Lisa,
such an important
I know that
conversation.
some questions are coming up, and you can maybe speak to it from the public school, and maybe David can address it too. I know that many parents have children with special needs, and so the idea of pulling their child out of public school and the resources that they get through that school, do you have any advice for them, starting with Lisa and then moving to David?
Yeah, I had two special needs students, and they did far better in distance learning. Um, it was great because when it's mom and child, now these are young children, right? My students are kindergartners. Mom can flow off of the child, redirect, sense, okay, we're done now. We're going to take a break. We're going to go do this now. Let's go make lunch. And both of my students did much, much better. They didn't waste their time. They weren't sitting there disconnected from what was happening when it was too advanced for them, because that's what other kids needed. So it's much more personal. It's much more targeted. It's much more, you can respond to their idiosyncrasies, their personalities, and their moods. So I think I'm just a big fan of it for kids with special needs.
David, what do you say to the parents who have children with special needs and are really nervous about stepping away from the public school system?
Well, I should tell you, my mother was a special education teacher for 20 years, so I saw the inside of the classroom, and it takes a real loving soul to be a special education teacher and to be a parent of a child with special needs. So, you know, the magnitude and the depth of your love, people don't understand. So I want to recognize the people out there, and it's difficult, you know, if they're able to become somehow productive or independent in life, you know, you want to push them in that direction and encourage them, inspire them, and you really got to help them, because the world around them is going to say they can't, or you know, they're unqualified, or give them all these labels. So I recommend you remove all the labels, even if it's just a label like ADD. You know, like these are all labels for pharmaceutical companies to sell them drugs, and then they walk around life saying, oh, I'm ADD, or I'm learning disabled, or I can't read, or all these different things. Once you realize your infinite potential, your consciousness, and whether you believe in God or nature, you're limitless. But if somebody puts a lid on you and says, this is your limit when you're 6, when you're 8, when you're 10, and your parents are like, yeah, that's your limit. All of a sudden, all the adults around this child says you have a limitation. And so the child says, I guess I'm limited. I guess I can't do it. So you want to be the inspirer, the encourager, the possibility maker for your child. So they say, wow, if my mom believes me, or my dad or uncle or somebody, then maybe I can. And then eventually they get that belief reinforced, and they say, I can do it, right? So it is that great poem that says, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're correct. So special education is very difficult. Also, the school districts get more money for special education students from the state. And just to give you an idea, the size of the business we're talking about here, the nationwide budget is over $700 billion for the K-12 school industry. And then in California, it's over $70 billion. So imagine all the people making money from this enterprise, the textbook publishers, the architects, the bus manufacturers, the uniform makers, the food makers. I mean, this is a huge racket. So rather than trying to take all that on for special education, maybe find other communities. Somebody mentioned the co-op earlier. You got to find community. And this is why schools divide us from each other, so we feel alone. They're isolating you. So you're like, I'm all by myself, although maybe your neighbor, somebody in your apartment complex or your HOA would be able to relate with you. So what I've done the last few years is I actually intend to make positive, freedom supporting friends, encouraging people, because that's what I want in 10 years. That's what I want in 20 years. So it takes a little bit of uncomfortability to put your hand out, say hello, introduce yourself, but we got to become better individuals. And yeah, it's very difficult for the special education. So that's the component on that. And I was gonna say something else, but I got off track. So
Can I jump back into that?
Yes.
One of the things that, since I'm in a public setting, they give limited support. And it's usually in a small group. It's not one-on-one. It's not specific to that child and their specific learning style or interests. And so like this year, I had a student who was quiet so much of the time when the whole classroom was together. But when I was with him one-on-one, oh my goodness, he was a different kid because he didn't have the pressure of, right? Getting to it quickly. He could wander, he could correct himself. And oh my gosh, it was just wonderful. So having more flexibility and time and attention is just a huge gift for all our kids.
Right. Yeah. Attention means love to children, right?
Yeah.
So when they're like, Mommy, Daddy, I want to do something, do something. If you just take 2 seconds and say, okay, I'm going to take a pause right here, and you just give them a couple minutes of your attention, that sometimes is enough, because your attention is what they crave. Those eyes looking down back at them, they're like, oh my gosh, I am worthy, I am loved. And I remember the thought I was going to say about contact tracing, because if you look at the video from Tony Thurman, he makes an appeal for money at the end, despite I'm saying this is $700 billion, $70 billion in California. We're like, we need more money. And he says, we'll have continual monitoring and contact tracing and face coverings. So here we are. This is mid-June, early June. So July, August, September, maybe you have 3 months, maybe 4 months. Mom and Dad, I recommend you strongly consider homeschooling this year, no matter what mountains you got to move, because these guys are going to put this indoctrination into your children that they have to be loyal to the state and be a global citizen, rather than be an individual and find your purpose and passion and love for yourself and respect for yourself. These are the things that will expand their potential, rather than obedience to the state and then the United Nations. I mean, these are diabolical people behind what's going on. So take these next few months. You can get my book or Gatto's book, other people, right? This book, Underground History of American Education. Also that documentary I mentioned, and then something called The Cartel. This is a documentary from 2009 about the criminality and the money involved. They do an in-case study in New Jersey and show how $1 billion disappears in the education department. Nobody was fired. Nobody got to bear that responsibility. So it's like $1 billion disappears from taxpayers who are paying their property taxes, and nothing happens. So that's kind of the bigger game. There's, longer term plans here, but for yourself, your child, just think about removing them, and then learn the stuff that Denise is talking about. Some of the people here, discussing that. We'll give you some resources. You can join the Facebook group, Homeschool Leader, but it's reprogramming ourselves on what is an education, what do we desire, and then define success. And one of the best definitions of success that I've come across, I really love, is by Coach John Wooden, the famous college basketball champion coach. He said, success is peace of mind, which is a direct result in knowing you made the effort to become your best. So in short, it's doing your best. As you said, if you know your child's doing your best, what else do you expect from him? If he has some tendencies and strengths over here, or weaknesses over here, focus on the strengths. Let him develop that confidence. Let him develop that competence in himself, and says, hey, I'm a smart guy, I'm a smart girl. And then that will roll out into other examples where they say, wow, I am worthy. And so just understand that there is a tsunami of responsibility coming, and it's either going to be chipped and tracked and traced by the state, or in your own community, doing homeschool co-ops or the homeschool associations or the online groups or these various events that got going on. But it's going to take some intention by you, mom and dad, to either build this community, learn some new skills, deprogram yourself, or, which is so easy, just drop them off at school, pick them up at 3 o'clock, and then that's the end of it. I know it's easy, but long term, that's going to be more devastating for their minds and for your relationship between them.
That contact tracing is really scary for me, because you're going to go drop off your child at school and say somebody comes to school infected. Now your child is going to be quarantined for 14 to 21 days alone without their family. You will not be able to visit them. It's going to be a dangerous situation. We already have, a huge problem with medical kidnapping cases, and this is just going to add fuel to the fire. I don't want to send my child home when they're doing the contact tracing, they're doing the temperatures. We have to start thinking about what their out of the box thinking is. They're telling us one thing, but it's really going to lead to something else. And you can call us conspiracy theorists or whatever it is. But right now, what we're seeing is this has actually played out. And they do have no problem removing children from their home. So
Right.
this is really serious. And, you know, if that's not enough to pull your child from the system right now, I mean, I don't know what is. The threat of being separated from your kid if they come to school with a child who's infected. I mean, you know, it's pretty scary stuff. So I do hope that, you know, people look at that.
Mm.
Well, I'd say this is that moment in time. You know, this is that moment in time. If you know it is that scary. Things are that serious. And I agree, if you can, like, do whatever you can to protect your children and your family. But also at the same time, we all have to fight, even if we don't have kids, even if we're not using a system. We have to fight masks and social distancing in any type of schools. We have to fight these reopening restrictions, whether they be for employees or, you know, of a business, or, you know, or residents of a nursing home or a grocery store, if you're visiting it. We all have to stay engaged. Even if we pulled our kids out and we're protecting them and taking every measure we can, we have to stay engaged, because that agenda is to go the direction we're all talking about, this full control system, the prison planet. That's the agenda. And if we don't fight it, it makes the battle that much harder, because that means that battle is going to come to your door of your house. And I'm just going to say it. That means guns and shit at your, sorry, I'm so sorry. That means a very, very serious situation that we're going to be in, those of us that will not comply with that. So we have to battle it here and now. Don't let any school open like this. Do not let the county public health officers continue to issue guidelines that people take like as laws. We have to fight that back, because it's the much easier battle is here and now. Even if your kids are protected, even if you're in a state that is protected, there are restrictions that you are needed to battle for in your community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lisa,
Sorry.
did you have something you wanted to add? And I want you to add, but I also want you to address that you're a bilingual teacher. And I know there's many people with the language barrier, this becomes an issue. I am the granddaughter of a Mexican family, and they only spoke Spanish when they came here. And so they felt that that wasn't their place to teach English. So you go to school to learn English. That's the proper thing to do. But at home we speak Spanish. And so that whole thing, speaking to that community, obviously we should probably do separate lives specifically in Spanish or in other languages. But for some of the people that are watching, you want to address that as well?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate that. So I have several parents who were interested in homeschooling. And so I was able to pass them to fluent Spanish speakers that did Zooms with them and helped train them and give them, you know, kind of a basics on homeschooling and puro español. And the other thing that you can do for Spanish speakers is you can use some of the great online learning tools like IXL, and then you can add the Spanish component. And so a number of my kindergartners are also doing, they did the English, the math, and then they added science and Spanish. And so they and their families want their child to be literate in their second language, first and second language. And so they're using a very well-known tool, IXL.com, and it's very cheap. I wanted to add the other thing is that overarching all of this is much like what David was talking about. There's an ideology that says the educrats know better than you do, and that they are deliberately separating parents and children. And it's not imaginary. You can go to CASEL, CASEL.org, and you can listen to their webinars, their podcasts. They talk about telling teachers to be rebels, to defy the laws, and to basically teach from their point of view what is right and good and superior to what their home values are. And I think that's just evil, to be honest. And so I want to run down this list. These are some of the topics that are going to be totally pushed this year. Global warming, Black Lives Matter, white privilege, gender orientation, transgenderism, pushing for school-based clinics so students as young as 12 can get medical services separate from mother and father's permission. Social emotional learning, they actually want teachers to evaluate your child's social emotional development, which is not something we can do. And that will, by the time they graduate from high school, they will have 36 of those assessments. And then the whole social emotional is all in a very twisted way to remove the individual and expand the collective. So they're taught to be sheep and allies.
That's like
horrifying.
traumatizing for myself.
Yeah, completely.
I'm
Horrifying.
speechless on the 36 assessments because we all know that one of the main goals of public education is data collection. And that's what the state testing is. And that's what all these assessments are. Data is gold in the information age. And so they are going to have this whole psychological profile of your child from K to 12. It's following them up through university. And now we've just added in contact tracing. So now we have your DNA too. If this doesn't send you through the roof to take action, whether again, you are a parent or not, if you have a heartbeat and you are a human being and think that this is all right to be profiling children psychologically and physically with their DNA, whoa, we have crossed a serious line in California and it's spreading like wildfire across our nation. David,
And
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about that is that they're also profiling the teachers. So my assessments they're gonna evaluate my assessments over time and say, what does that say about Lisa? So people like me, I'm not a sheep. I'm independent, I think for myself. We're gonna be targeted. So one of the things you're gonna see when teachers come back in, it's already actively going, is this oppression. There's only one right answer. There's not free speech, there's controlled speech, and if you don't comply or if you're silent, that's not good enough. So
yeah, it's like the movie Divergent. It's the word divergent. This is what they identify. Yeah, that's horrifying. Thanks for sharing that as the assessment piece too. It's like when we were fighting SB 276 in California, why we were fighting for no databases on your medical records, is that includes your, your emotional issues, the kids get, that's going to go with them for life in a database, in a system. I mean, it literally means you're guilty before innocent. It means like anything that may happen, whether now, it be your employer or you have an incident down the road, all that is up for assessment and judgment, based on someone, whatever the perception is. And that is not a safe way for humanity.
Yeah.
So it's more bureaucracy.
Yep.
Bureaucracy.
Listen to this quote. This quote, I want to give you some because this is diabolical. What's happening, the contact tracing, the social distancing, everything which you just said, Lisa, is crazy anti-educational and anti-empowerment. But listen to this. This is the purpose why school is compulsory. 1806, because the whole American school system was imported from Prussia, which is old Germany. Quote, 1806 by Johann Fichte, education, he means schooling, should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. End quote. That's addresses to the German nation, 8th address to the German nation. So what's going to happen is that they're going to turn children against parents. So let's say you have a pro-freedom parent and you put your child in the state school system. they're going to say, hey, is mom talking about the gun? Is mom talking about personal responsibility and taking care of their own health care, taking care of their own money, whether it's crypto, Bitcoin, Monero? They say, yeah, my mom's talking about that. Oh, interesting. And then they'll send the truancy officer or CPS or the contact tracer. So this is why it's really important for parents to understand the government is a criminal entity. It's based on coercion. Where did they get these rights? Well, the Bill of Rights was supposed to limit the government, right? And maybe for the first 50 years, maybe it worked. But now we're seeing this is the largest government in history. They can just print money. They've printed over $6 trillion through this COVID whole scam hoax. And there is a virus, but it's not as drastic as they said it is. And again, the forced vaccines, again, violating your body autonomy, which you guys have done, ladies have done so great in the last few years, but that's 5 years old now. So imagine what's going to happen in the next 5 years if enough adults, parents, single people don't get up and say, hey guys, we're not participating in that. So that might include withdrawing your child, which does reduce their average daily attendance, which is how the districts get money from the state. Then they're funded by property taxes. So this is another conversation about voluntarism, but we're looking at ideas to empower neighbors and communities to stop being extorted through property extortion, property taxes. You've paid for your house. You don't have to rent it from the county. I mean, we have to understand where we're at. It's taken generations for us to get here. And so even 200 years ago, they were talking about, let's make a school system so that they police themselves. And that's why if you ever go to a grocery store, as I have, without a mask, the guy comes up to me with the mask and says, you got to have a mask on. I say, I have a medical exemption. He says, I'm going to call the cops. Okay, call the cops. Let's have a conversation. We're going to live stream it and start having discourse about this, because the politicians are bought and paid for. Richard Pan, you know, he's a prostitute in his own right, you know, but all these guys, you know, if these guys are pro-pharma, clearly they're getting campaign money. So it's up to us individuals to realize that we got to speak up, expose it, as you are doing so great, Lisa, and the Freedom Angels and everyone out there. Find an issue and start bringing it to the table so we can talk about it, and then how we can resolve it in a peaceful, voluntary manner, because ultimately the state is violence and they hate us having the guns. And Mark Passio said something great. He said, any country that has removed the guns from the citizenry has perfected slavery. And this just happened in Australia, you know, 20 years ago. And so the Australians are saying, hey, Americans, don't give up your guns. And so there's other technologies like the 3D gun printer, the mill machine, so you can print out your guns, another conversation. But freedom is going to win, I believe. And as long as we talking about these things and providing solutions, we outnumber them. And so we just got to organize. And you guys are doing so great. And that's the part that's been going on for a while, but we're kind of at the tip of it. So let's keep the hope and let's keep talking about these solutions.
Yeah, and thank you guys for, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
So the other piece I just want to let you know that will be happening in our public schools is our elementary students will be holding rallies and protests. It will be a very politicized environment in many school districts. In one of my schools, they when they had the Florida high school shooting, they went to the elementary schools and the kids did an anti-gun thing with the superintendent. San Francisco puts kids in buses and they go to anti-certain party rallies. And they are so focused on November 3rd that they're going to blow the lid on everything that they feel they need to do. So I'm just saying, if you want your kid to be exposed to that during the day, during school, that's a strong possibility.
Not only that, but the climate change also. You saw Greta Thunberg doing it last couple years. They're going to do it again. They're going to sell Fridays for the climate change. And that's how they're going to fund their United Nations, using your kids against something you don't want. And so the solution, one of them, is to remove them entirely from that system.
Yes. So we are at our hour.
Okay, shoot.
Yeah, we're at our hour. So thank you, David, and thank you, Lisa, for joining us. I appreciate this. And thank you to everybody who's watched. Please have this watch party up and share the video. You can also find us on YouTube under Freedom Angels. and our website, freedomangelsfoundation.org. So we will be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock California time to talk about freedom and liberty around the nation. Thank you guys for joining. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.